Welcome back to the Braun Performance Rehab Podcast. This is episode 499, which is an incredible milestone. And it's one of those that I still can't believe we made it here. I started the podcast back in March of 2020 at a time of a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people during the COVID era that way. And we just refused to quit. And here we are now. And we had a few different ideas as to how to celebrate this milestone of hitting 500 podcast episodes. And there's two ideas that were too good to turn down. So I decided we're going to do both of them. And this is the first idea, which involves 9 different high performers that way, whether it's titles of CEO, titles of professional athlete or high level athlete, or athlete turned entrepreneur, whatever it is that way. We have some incredible people that I look up to, I think very highly of. And I'm just so appreciative to have them share more time with us because they've all been on the podcast in the past and share more insights into the concept of success. A lot of people have talked to me and told me, man, you're successful because, tens of thousands of people have listened to your podcast. You're successful because you have this network or because you met that person. And it got me thinking, how do we define success? What does success look like? By my definition, by your definition, and so on that way. What does it truly mean? So we had several separate conversations about success on the podcast today, and I hope this is something that helps you on your own journey and quest to what it means to be successful. Episodes like this are made possible by ISOFIT, Firefly Recovery, and Engage Movement. For more information on all 3 of those, please check the description below. Enjoy this episode. Todd, welcome back to the podcast. Really appreciate your time, man. For people who didn't listen to our first episode back in February, I think it was, diving into Ninja Warrior and all the amazing stuff you do in the PT space, would you mind just kind of reminding them who you are and all the amazing things you do? Maybe they know you as the Cajun Cowboy, I should say.
Yeah, that's my fancy stage name. You like that? Yeah, so Todd Bourgeois, born and raised in Southwest Louisiana on a cattle ranch. So that's actually where the Cajun Cowboy theme came from. It's really who I am. But I went on to I was a collegiate athlete, and went on to grad school and became a physio. Decided to be a big old nerd and just continue on that journey, and got a PhD, fellowship, OCS, all the credentials that you could get in that profession. And then while I was teaching the students, they ended up encouraging me to jump into this thing called American Ninja Warrior at some point, just because we were training together, having a good time, doing all kind of fun stuff and working out. And then boom, before you know it, I found myself on the stage of American Ninja Warrior. And heck, this past season was the 10th season that I competed on the show. And been a wild journey. So as an athlete, as a professor, as a educator and a clinician, I stay pretty dang busy.
I would say so, man. You're always traveling all over the world and just having such a positive impact on others, whether that's in the athletic side of things, the academic side of things, or even just the life side of things that way. I think you're really an incredible individual, and you're someone, by my own definition, that I would consider to be highly successful. But I find a lot of times people throw that word success around and they don't ever really know what it means to them, or it might mean something different to someone else than themselves that way. For you, what does success actually mean or look like in your life?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who follow the philosophy. It's not about that destination, I'm more about the journey. Success is that you enjoyed the ride. You got out there, you give it your best shot, you give, all you can put out on the table. And then when you turn around and look back, which, you don't need to look back that often, but when you do look back and reflect and, for your growth opportunity and all that, but you say, well, I didn't let anything slide. I got it done. I did everything I could, and you know what? I had a dang good time doing it. So success for me is a good journey, is a good ride. You help people along the way, help yourself along the way, most importantly. And then, hey, if you end up somewhere pretty high, cool. If you end up rock bottom, cool. You're still, doing the right things. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that journey mindset and mentality that way. But as you mentioned, sometimes you might be on top of the world and other times you might be at rock bottom that way. how have you been able to stay positive when those rock bottom moments come around, if they come around? Or, how are you still making sure that you're on that path to success when sometimes it feels like things might not be going the way you want them to?
For me, it's more of I think it's in my blood. I don't think, I know it's in my blood. If you look at my father and you see the way he handles things out here on the farm, I mean, he just doesn't stop moving. I mean, I'm just the type of person that I can't stop moving. I mean, sure, I can relax every now and then, cut back and have a good time, but, um, you know, he who rests rots, all that fun stuff, all those lingos and stuff, like, just keep moving. If you keep wiggling, even if you're on rock bottom, you keep on wiggling, you're gonna find somewhere, somehow to get out of it. Even when it looks like the future doesn't look like a possible feat. Um, I'm a use the words of a friend who just passed away, but something he used to always say was, "It's doable." Didn't matter what it was, just, you can't see the end of it, you can't see it even happening, but he would always just mumble the words, "It's doable," and he'd walk away and figure it out. So, I think it's pretty powerful to just, you know, look at where you're at as, "Hey, this is just a journey. I'm gonna keep moving. If I just keep moving, I'm gonna get somewhere." You may be thinking that your journey or your target is hitting the highest point of the mountain. I mean, good if you get there, but that shouldn't be the target. But do realize that even though the top of that mountain looks completely impossible, it's probably doable.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I
Eh,
love that saying. And it's something, to your point. If you just remain in motion, you eventually get to that destination, right? There's a saying that all roads lead to Rome. It's like, yeah, it might take one person a day to get there and someone else a year to get there, but you'll get there eventually if you just keep moving and making turns. Even if they're not the right turns, you'll
Cool.
eventually figure it out as you go.
Yeah, and those wrong turns, man, you learn a lot more if you didn't take that wrong turn.
Absolutely. No, for sure, man, for sure. And I realize success in anything, whether that's academics and obtaining a PhD, doing a manual fellowship, OCS, and so on that way, or athletics, competing on Ninja Warrior, 10 seasons, which is incredible. That requires a lot of sacrifice, whether that's time or sleep or anything in between that way. What did your success cost you? What did you have to give up to get to this point in your life, Todd?
You know, that's interesting the way you phrase it. What did it cost me or what did I have to give up? I mean, you can look at that from many ways, and I think in the eye of the beholder that can come across different ways. But, you know, um, I have friends who have families and, careers and all those things, and they're pretty busy, and they look at me and they go, "How the heck you do all this stuff?" Well, yeah, you're single, you don't have a family, you're not, and I wouldn't ever say that I sacrificed that to be where I am, but I have the unique opportunity and time, to be able to do a lot of things that I'd say a lot of people don't get to do. Doing a PhD is not an easy thing. I mean, that just takes all your consumption of time and energy, and then somehow I found a way to continue to train through all of that. But training has always been a unique discipline in my life that I stick with it. No matter what's going on, I usually try to sneak something in, whether it's a 5-10 minute workout or, a full blown 2-3 hour session. Um, I think at the end of the day, the sacrifice was not a sacrifice. I couldn't honestly define it as that. It's just a matter of a mindset. It's a plug and play. You know, Clearly mindset's everything, but discipline goes farther than any kind of dream or goal that you could have. Yeah, I want to be there, but if you don't take one step after the other, and come up with a little bit of a plan. It's okay to alter that plan, but if the plan isn't there, you're probably not going to follow anything. You don't know what step to take in front of the next. So the sacrifices are just, being hard headed, I guess. Sticking to your guns and staying to your plan as best you can. And if it alters, don't get too upset about it. Just say, hey, these are the cards I've been dealt. I can control what I can control. And as long as you stay focused on that, because if you let other things come in and start saying things happen to me and victimize yourself, that level of energy is going to tank you down, and you're going to have the energy to get the next step done. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, what I gave up. A lot of time is really the truth, I guess, but that time was well spent, in my opinion. In my viewpoint, in my mindset, it was well spent. It wasn't sacrificed. It was towards something.
Right. I think that's ultimately what it's all about, right? Working towards something bigger and better than yourself that way, right? Like, hey, I'm going to become this better version of me to have this impact, or I'm going to work towards this goal that no one else thinks I can do. It's just me, but I'm going to keep hammering at it day after day after day. To me, when I say sacrifice, I actually think you mentioned the victim mindset. I think that is what leads to sacrifice when you let yourself become a victim of everything, when you lose sight of your true goals and purpose and what you're working towards, and you start to get distracted and fall into all these different, I call them digital distractions, like the TV, the video games, all these different things that way. I say that, and I realize I, mentioned earlier that I watch you on the TV on Ninja Warrior, but, it's one of those things that people get so caught up in some of this stuff that I think it takes them away from life and what the whole purpose and meaning of it is actually about.
Couldn't agree more, man. And to add, it's okay to watch TV and, scroll through some gram or TikTok, whatever, every now and then. I mean, as long as you're using that as a form of like growth and gaining more information, and stuff like that. But yeah, the doom scroll is definitely not good. And we all have to pull ourselves out of that for sure. But yeah, there's that mindset and that energy that you could definitely define as sacrifice. I like your definition better than mine. I think just staying away from that low energy, is the ticket.
Yeah, I sucked at physics class, but there was something about a body in motion remains in motion. And I found if you just keep moving, to your point from earlier, it's so easy to stay moving and still get stuff done. It's like, oh my gosh, I just did X, Y, and Z. Now I can move on to this and this and this. Like, you don't want to stop. It becomes addicting in a way. And I'd imagine that was true for you. It's like, oh my gosh, I got my OCS. I can go do a fellow now. I can go do a PhD now. Same thing with Ninja Warrior. It's like, hey, I was on the show once. Like, I can do another season. I can do it again. You just got to start. And once you start, just don't stop.
Yeah, you get hungry. Keep going.
Absolutely. I mean, you could apply that to anything. I mean, even just the concept we were talking about hunting a little bit earlier. It's like, if you can take, hypothetically, say you can take 10 duck one in a week, and it's like you get one, it's like, okay, I want the next one. It's like you're not going to just settle and be satisfied with where you're at, always looking for more.
Always looking for more.
Awesome, Todd. Is there any other insights that you want to share in relation to success and how you've gotten to this incredible point in your life, man?
Well, I think I'm going to spin off of what you just said. We talked about hungry, and I have another good friend of mine who's a world-class paddleboarder. He's traveling the world doing his thing, living his dream. Paddleboarding doesn't make, tremendous amount of money and fame and all that stuff, but he is living his dream. And something we came up with, he grew up in a third world country, but he always said hunger is the best seasoning. Hunger is the best seasoning. And this applies to food, is what he was talking about. Like when you're hungry, it doesn't matter what you eat and it tastes good, And so the coin hunger is the best season. I don't know if that's actually a Brazilian thing or what, but I like to apply that to life too. And I'm the one who kind of turned that around and spun it on. I was like, that should apply to your goals too, your life, where you're headed with it. And hunger is the best seasoning, because whenever you are hungry, it doesn't matter what progress you make, it feels good. So stay hungry, my friends.
I love that. I love that, Todd. For people who want to find out more about you online and keep up to date with all the amazing stuff you're doing, from athletics to academics and beyond, where can they find you at?
Well, the social, the gram, I kind of am horrible at posting, but that's where I can get the most of it going. And I have myself a little website going. I created a content company called Primal Labs, and website's in construction, trying to get that going. But I think Primal Labs is going to be a good place to kind of see what I'm doing professionally more. I love to punch out, more and more as the time goes, or well, time allows and I can squeeze it in. But yeah, that's kind of your best bet. Otherwise, you just got to catch me on the flyby, because I'm working for 5 different places, different businesses I got going, and it's fun. It's a blast, but I enjoy it.
I think that's one of the many reasons we get along so well, Todd. Always doing something new, something different. It's exciting that way, man. We'll link to all of that in the description below. Really appreciate your time and your insights, dude. Thank you.
Anytime there, buddy.
Reagan, welcome back to the podcast. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so glad we're able to have you here. For people who aren't familiar with you and all the amazing things you're doing in the physical therapy space, constantly traveling on top of that as well, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are, and all the amazing things you get to do?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I thank you so much for having me back. I've been looking forward to this all week, and I think it's always fun to sort of have a different way of thinking in the back of my mind. And I think a podcast specific to this one is a great way to sort of reflect on my career, where I started, where I am now, and kind of it's fun to see the challenges that seemed really hard at the time and be proud of kind of where you're at. So I'm Reagan. I am a physical therapist with the U.S. ski team, and I primarily travel with Michaela Schifrin. We actually just got to Austria for the start of the season, and our first race is in 2 weeks. So we're kind of in that final prep period right now. Um, Once we're on the road over here, we're pretty much in and out of hotel rooms every 3 to 5 days, looking for the best training, um, and trying to maximize as much volume and intensity as we can in between races. And that goes all the way through March.
Yeah, that's a super long season, but also super incredible for you to be able to be a part of that. But also, like, as far as I'm concerned, you're highly successful just from what I've gotten to know about you as a person, from you specifically, but also all these amazing people that we seem to both know that way. I still can't believe how much our network has overlapped with people like literally your like college soccer coach who also just so happened to end up in Salisbury where I was at the time. Like the world is so, so small, and everyone has just had so many incredible things to say about you. And I've just been blown away at all the things that you're doing and the person that you are. By my own definition, you're highly successful in every regard, but everyone defines success a little bit different. And for some people, maybe they tie it to achieving a certain goal or maybe a financial number or whatever that way. I'd love to hear, what does success look like for you, or how do you define success in Reagan's terminology?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first of all, it's no coincidence that we are crossing paths. I think you, similar to me, I think we're both very authentic people, at least from what I've gotten to know about you. And I think first and foremost, that's one of the things that I try to strive for every day is what lights me up, what excites me, what makes me happy, what kind of gives me that like peppy, bouncy energy. And can I do that as many times throughout the day as possible? And I think that has been something that has helped kind of give me direction in terms of where I've wanted to go in my career. And it's kind of helped me stay present. I think when we're on the road like this, it's so easy to be like, oh, we got to go here. We got to plan this. We got to make these conditions better. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But I think in terms of my version of success, it's actually enjoying the process and enjoying every day that we kind of get to be on this competitive circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would imagine that if you asked like 10-year-old Reagan what she wanted to do when she was older, being a US ski team PT might not have been the first thing to come to mind. But now that you're here, it's like, oh my gosh, like what an incredible journey. How do I find a way to enjoy every moment and every day? Because just earlier we were talking about
Yeah.
travel, and it's like I think it's easy to get caught up in some of these little things that can go wrong when you're on the road all the time. I know I've had a few delays, canceling flights and stuff, and it's very easy to let that stuff get to you, but you find a way, or at least you seem to find a way to remain positive and energetic through it all and just really focus on the goods instead of the not so goods. And even when things are not so good, you find a way to still, embrace the beauty within it all somehow.
Yeah, I think touching on like what would 10-year-old me want, I think a lot of that kind of comes down to reflection and sort of reflecting on like that joy that I had as a kid. And some of my fondest memories were going like I played every sport. My parents were amazing. They drove me around. Um, but it was like high energy, super creative, pretty chaotic, and I loved it. I just kind of floated between all these different arenas. And I think in thinking of my career, that's the space that I wanted to be in. Something that was high energy, and sort of a place where I could bring my own character and charisma into that setting.
I'm right there with you. And I love that high energy, creative, chaotic saying. I feel like that needs to be put on a t-shirt or something like that. Cause those are literally the vibes I try to bring every single day. It's like, some people have a 5-year plan. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing in 5 hours, but there's beauty within that chaos that comes from that.
But I think that's great though. Like, I think if you can not, like, I think if you're thinking of like, what do I want to do in 2 years? What do I want to do in 5 years? Like, yes, it's great to have a little bit of that vision, but after you kind of create the vision, then it's like, can I be as good as I possibly can? Can I show up the best as I possibly can? Can I make these people's day around me a little bit better? And then that's going to kind of open up the next step. And then you do the best you can in that step, and then that's going to open up the next step. And I think that kind of keeps this energy that then allows you to kind of have the grit and the consistency and sort of that mindset that really leads to true success.
And it's interesting because you brought up about, the concept of pouring into others, and that's come up a lot as we've been doing these with different athletes and other high achieving individuals, is that there's always some concept of putting others before themselves, and yet somehow they never run out of energy. They're always fulfilled. And I think a lot of times when people talk about success, they have it backwards, right? They put themselves first. Well, when I do this, when I do that, and it's like, hey, maybe we're the lesser important part of this equation, and maybe it's more about the impact and influence that we end up having as others, on others, as a result of our day-to-day actions, if you will. And it's like, the more we can inspire, influence, and impact others, the better my day, the better my life becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that comes down to really reflecting on like what lights you up. Like, for me, it's exactly what you just said. It's inspiring confidence. It's showing people that they can overcome a challenge, and they can figure it out, and they can come out the other side of something that might be difficult even stronger than they were before they started.
Absolutely. And part of your line of work is obviously solving very complex problems, and sometimes problems that other people have never really had to solve in the past. You can't really read about it in the book or the research. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, how do we do this thing? Because we're going to be the first ones to do it, for lack of a better way to put it. How have you been able to kind of keep yourself kind of grounded and just stay Reagan that we all know you as, throughout this process of like walking through some of the most difficult obstacles and challenges that exist in this space, if you will?
Yeah, thinking of the injury that we worked through last year, I kind of like looking at these things as a challenge. Like, even last year when we were working through Michaela's oblique injury, the surgeon actually said at one point, he looked at me and he said, like, we're writing the textbook on this. And I think you can take that either way. You can kind of take that in a sort of fear apprehensive way of like, oh, like this could go either direction, or you can take it as like, all right, let's write the textbook then. Like, game on. I'm going to reach out to the people that I know. I have a network around me that I trust and I stay in touch with regularly that can help, and they understand my energy. They understand how I think. And we're going to basically go day by day and put our best foot forward and do as much as we possibly can, in these smaller increments, and sort of trust that if I'm doing all of these small things over and over and over again, we're going to get to that vision of kind of completing the task.
Yeah, I love that. Breaking the big complex thing down into smaller steps, if you will, that way. And I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is, it's like, what a blessing and privilege it is to get to be the person that's, working with this or solving this problem or whatever that way, right? Like, I've never had a case quite similar to yours that way, but like, there's been different ones that come about, and it's like, this is a challenge. No one else has been able to figure it out. Like, what a blessing it is to be able to be that person for someone that it's like, hey, look, they've tried X, Y, and Z, or there's nothing else available. Like, I'll be the one to figure it out. Like, obviously there's sacrifices that come with that. You lose a little bit of sleep, you put a lot of time and effort and energy in, but I think at the end of the day, looking at that as such a like positive thing that you get to be the one to do that instead of, oh, this is the work that I have to do. I think it's that power of positivity, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, and I think it's the interest and the curiosity too. Like listening to that surgeon say like we're writing the textbook. I'm like, to me, like that's so motivating. It's like, okay, I'm curious. Like let's write the best textbook that we can write then. And I'm going to look at this from as many different angles that I can come up with, and then I'm going to go to my external peers and see if they can help me with anything that I might be missing. And I think that curiosity is kind of what fuels the days that are hard. Like any rehab is going to have hard days that maybe you're not making the progress that you want to make, or people feel burnt out, or people are concerned with the unpredictability. And like, as long as you have that curiosity and that energy, then you kind of have this fire to fuel the problem solving.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, there's a lot of trade-offs to get to the level that you're at in your line of work, Reagan. Like, obviously, I think of some of the athlete conversations we had, and they were like, yeah, I missed my high school prom because I had to go and train, or I had to compete, or whatever that way. And I mean, in your line of work, I'm just thinking about the residency program and the amount of time and hours that you spend just honing your craft, but also like the time that you invested literally just learning how to ski. Because it's like, if you're going to be on the ski team and you're going to be slopeside, you kind of have to know how to ski regardless of what the conditions are that way. I'd love to hear more about what kind of things that you feel like, maybe they weren't like loss per se, but maybe things that you had to have as like an opportunity cost, if you will, in order to get to this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think you, similarly with the mindset, I think you can look at it as things that are lost, or you can kind of look at it as, okay, some of these things I sort of put to the side for a minute, but it was worth it because I was pursuing something that I was so excited about. Like even the residency, like I came in straight out of school with a startup. I was so inspired by this thought of creating this business and building a brand and building a reputation. Yeah, I didn't sleep much. I probably didn't eat super well at the time, but I was so driven to kind of at that point of my career just become the best possible PT I could, and just soak it all in. And I think you kind of go through phases. Like at that point, I was like up here burning the candle at both ends, and then it comes down for a little bit and you sort of rebalance, and then something else, then the ski team came along. And that was all new, and I needed to figure out how to travel in Europe, and I needed to, like you said, figure out how to ski on super icy terrain. I had to leave my family and friends. I think that was probably the hardest, was leaving my community at home. But you work with it and you create a community over here, and you lean on people over here, and you can kind of create the world that you're missing in what you're pursuing.
Yeah, I love that line. And I think that it's, to your point, it's not like anything lost, or it's not given up, because it's just part of the recipe that it takes to do great things at the end of the day. And I think that, going back to what we mentioned earlier about what a privilege it is to be the one to solve these problems, it's also like a privilege to have to make difficult decisions like this, because it's like, oh my goodness, it's like either opportunity that you take, either path that you go on is going to be absolutely incredible. It's like, hey, like, if I pursue this with the U.S. ski team, like, look at all the things, look at all the doors that open up. If I stay at home, hey, look at all the things that open up in my local community. Like, I think a lot of times people think of like success as like a right path or a wrong path, when in reality, it's just what you make of the path that you go on, I think.
Absolutely. I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's putting your best foot forward in whatever situation you're in. And I also think it's giving yourself a little bit of grace, and I've kind of learned this looking back on it, but like you're not going to be perfect the first time. Even that residency year, like I probably didn't take care of myself as well as I probably should have, But that gave me, like, I learned how to grind. I learned how to do hard things. I learned how to sort of juggle all these different things. So then when I got into the ski world, it was kind of like, okay, I've done this before. I've done hard stuff before. My capacity for juggling all these things is already here. And it sort of makes jumping into the next adventure, I guess, a little bit easier. And you can start to layer in, like, oh, maybe I need boundaries here, or maybe I need to eat a little bit healthier, or this is actually how much sleep I need. But I think you have to you just have to start something that you're interested in and try and kind of figure out where you land.
And to your point, you have to put the time in. I think anymore, everyone's looking for the shortcut or the easy way to get there. Or there's growing sense of entitlement I've gotten from some individuals I've talked with where they're like, oh, I deserve this, I deserve that because I did this. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, if you haven't put your time and effort and energy in and you haven't done what it takes, like, don't expect things to come your way. Like, like you mentioned, it's like, literally like going to bed at midnight and then waking up at 4 a.m. the next day because that's what it takes. And yeah, it's probably not the healthiest, most sustainable thing long term, but like that's been a common trait I've heard amongst anyone who's done great things. It's like you have to be willing to burn the candle at both ends, put in the midnight oil, and go 80, 100, sometimes even more hours per week honing your craft and getting, the maximum results out of whatever the work that you're putting in is.
Yeah, I think putting the time in, and I think realizing that the actual wisdom is in that time. Like, you have to just get the reps. You have to get the exposure. And I wanted it right when I got out of school. I wanted to be great immediately. And the reality was, like, that's not going to happen until you see all these different types of scenarios. And I'm still learning. And
Absolutely.
I think you think about success, and I appreciate your kind words about being successful, but I think I personally just see it as like, okay, yep, there's milestones that you're like, that was really cool, but like, I'm still learning. What's the next thing I can kind of get better at? And there's really an end to it.
That's one of the biggest things I've picked up on from people too, is it never ends. It's always the next mountain that you get to climb. It's always the next obstacle you get to overcome. It's never a point where you stop and say it's good enough. It's always what's next and constantly pushing forward.
And I think that definition of success can change too. So like those first few years out of school, it was like, I want to be the best clinician. I want to build this business. I want to learn social media and marketing. And then as you get older, maybe it's like, I want to be more present, or I want to be able to juggle my career and my health and my family and a schedule that is a little more flexible. And I think it can shift, and like, it's definitely not a fixed mindset.
I completely agree. Reagan, I feel like we could probably talk about this all day long. I always love conversations with you. I just always leave feeling a lot more energized and inspired that way.
That's cool.
I'm here for. I always love the energy that you bring that way. Is there anything we missed or anything else you wanted to discuss on this topic of success and how incredible you are and the journey you've been on is?
Sorry, my internet froze for a second. Did you say, is there anything we missed?
Anything we missed, anything else you want to discuss or share about this incredible journey that you've been on?
I think we covered most of it. I think the biggest thing is sort of defining what success means to you. And I think it's being willing to do whatever needs to be done to make you feel like you are doing your best and showing up as your best, even when things aren't necessarily perfect. And you kind of just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
I could not agree more. Reagan, for people who want to find out more about you and keep up to date with all the amazing travels and adventures that you're on, where can they find you at online?
You can check out my Instagram, which I'm not great on, at Regan Dewhirst, or LinkedIn is probably the best in terms of.
And I believe that Michaela has a podcast that you're sometimes making a little appearance in as well.
She will be. Yes. Not yet released though. Oh, her YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yes.
I mixed it up.
That's okay.
I'll fix that.
Hey, you're a mind reader.
What was the name?
What
was the name of the YouTube channel? I can't remember.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. I knew it was something witty. So awesome.
the injury season last year. You can watch, I think there's 2 or 3 seasons.
Awesome.
But
We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just keep up to date with everything Reagan is up to. Reagan, this was awesome. Appreciate your time and everything.
oh, it's so fun to chat with you.
Mairyn, welcome back to the podcast. It's so great to see you again. Second appearance on the show that way. I'm pretty sure the last one we did ended up being like our number 1 and number 2 episode of all time, because that's just the level of energy and commitment that you bring to everything that you do. For people who aren't familiar with you and how incredible you are, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all that you got going on?
Yeah, so thanks again for having me. It's great to be back. The influence that you kind of have in this space has really grown and it's been awesome to see. But I know that a lot of people kind of look to you and your expertise and the people that you bring on to help kind of influence them in their day to day. So thank you for all you're doing in the space as well, Dan, and thanks for having me. But so I am a sports physical therapist based out of Dallas, Texas. I own my own physical therapy business, so I work for myself, which has been a learning process, but it's going great. Love it. I feel like I'm able to help so many more people and just really put myself into my work in the way that is going to influence people in the best way possible. So I work majority with NBA, NFL athletes, and I work with some high school collegiate athletes as well. Specifically, football and basketball is kind of where I specialize, but we get a good mix.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. And even I think some like martial arts athletes as well, which is just absolutely incredible that way. And as you mentioned, you've got that entrepreneur hat on, which I think that's one of the things that both of us share and bond over a lot. But at least for myself, 5-10 years ago, I didn't really expect to be in that kind of shoes where it's like, hey, my income is on me, all these different things. Obviously, I think you're highly successful in what you've been able to do that way. And you're young. I mean, both of us are both young. Like, we're both under the age of like 30 or something like that. Like, we both have so much time ahead of us, but I look at you as highly successful and I hold you in very high regard in my personal circle that way. I'd love to hear more about how you got here and how you define success, because I've noticed as I've talked with so many different people, everyone kind of defines success a little bit different and it looks different from one person to the next. Some tie it to like a financial goal or number, or some tie it to like a number of physical brick and mortar clinics that they've opened, or a number of employees they have, or an athlete that they work with, or whatever. What does that look like, or what does success mean to you, Mayor?
I think for me, success is becoming what you're capable of to the absolute fullest. So it's stepping into the best version of yourself within a specific space. And with that comes impact and being able to positively influence others to do the same in their own way.
Man, you said that so eloquently. I love that. And it's funny because my own kind of personal definition is very similar, right? Like, I think success is not about the outcome, but the process of getting there and those that you help along the way. It's not about scaling to the highest mountain. It's about bringing as many people as you can with you to the top of that mountain, if you will. And I think that, it's very rare to find people that think like that anymore. And that's one of the many things that I think makes you so special in today's day and age. How have you been able to apply that concept of success to your work as an entrepreneur? Because like I mentioned, I'm assuming 10 years ago, you didn't expect to be in this position where you're kind of owning your own business and on your own for a lot of what you do.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I always tell people like running my own business, owning my own clinic is really never something that I said that was a goal of mine. But it's just an opportunity that kind of came up and it was something that I wasn't able to turn away from. And I think more than anything, kind of applying, I guess, my idea of what success is comes from a mindset more than anything. So it's understanding that like every day you have to be purposeful in your actions and you have to take that mindset with you of that growth mindset of being able to approach every situation into, okay, how am I growing through this, or how am I able to help others grow through this? And I think in order to find out what you're capable of, you also have to find out what you're not capable of. So that means like having a willingness to be able to fail along the way. And I think that willingness to fail is ultimately what really makes you successful, because those obstacles are ways that you're able to learn more about yourself or learn more about a situation and how to approach it a little differently the next time in order to get to where you're trying to go.
To your point about having that growth mindset, if you will, I've come across a lot of people over the past couple of years, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, that almost get in this like comfort zone, and that comfort zone almost becomes their new danger zone because they're unwilling to accept risk. They're unwilling to step out of that comfort zone and try things. You know, they might be in a situation that they absolutely hate. They vent about it to you all the time, and it's like, there comes to a point where I just want to say, look, enough. Like, you gotta like take this leap. And like, if you're really not happy there, if half of what you've told me is true, then like you have to find a way to kind of like redevelop that growth mindset, if you will, because you went from someone who was constantly learning, right? You went through school, you picked up X, Y, and Z, and then you got to this point somehow, some way where you lost that and you're just comfortable where you're at. And it's like, it's hard to kind of break that cycle of, I think, losing the growth mindset to redeveloping it, if you will. And I don't know if you've seen anything like that, but I've seen that a lot lately. And it's concerning to me that people are not willing to kind of bet on themselves anymore, like maybe they used to be.
Yeah. One thing one of my college coaches always used to say to me and our team was that you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So that was something that he would kind of always harp on to us. And that was a big lesson for us to learn. Obviously, in that sense, it was a little more physical. It was definitely still mental, but it was a little more physical. But that is definitely a huge part of that mindset, is being able to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and what that looks like in your day to day, knowing that, again, it kind of goes back to knowing that this is all for my personal growth, or for being able to help someone else with their personal growth. And when you look at it from that perspective, I think you're able to value that discomfort a little bit more, knowing what's coming out from it on the other side.
That was so well said, Mayor. And like I mentioned earlier, I deem you as someone who's highly successful in every way I can think of it that way. But success always comes with some type of trade-off, if you will, right? I think everyone sees the stuff online, or they hear about the stories of all the things you're doing. Oh my gosh, like I want to be just like her. I want to work with the pro athletes. I want to own my own successful business. I want to X, Y, and Z that way. The list goes on and on. But I think a lot of people don't understand what's maybe under the iceberg, if you will, speaking metaphorically. They don't understand what it takes to get to this point in your life and career, and all the time and effort and energy that you've had to put into this. You know, I know you and I have texted and jumped on calls where I feel like you're, maybe only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night and just burning the candle at both ends to make these dreams a reality that way. What all goes into the making and process of all this stuff that people see and know you for on the day to day?
Well, I think it's funny that, I mean, you keep mentioning how you think like I'm highly successful, but I think because of my mindset, I also don't see myself that way. I kind of like, I definitely acknowledge my accomplishments, and I'm way ahead of where I kind of thought I would be at this point in my career. But I think having that mindset and having that hunger kind of keeps you going. So even though now, like, sure, you've reached one milestone, but you're always kind of looking ahead to that next milestone, always kind of looking ahead to like what else can I do? What more can I do? And so I think from a cost point of view, I think there's two different kinds of costs you pay. I think the initial cost is what you pay when you're trying to achieve it. And then there's also an additional cost of kind of like after you achieve it. So I think when you're trying to achieve that success, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it, there's time. Maybe you don't get to spend as much time with certain relationships, or you don't have as much freedom. But again, it's all your perspective is what kind of brings it back to making it worthwhile, and the investment that you're willing to put in. And then there's the cost of after you achieve it, right? So now you might have some additional pressures, whether those are pressures that you put on yourself or that you're feeling from outside noise or anything like that. Um, and so I think being able to stay grounded in yourself, like knowing yourself, whether that is bringing in those additional relationships, or spiritually, whatever kind of keeps you grounded and keeps you feeling like yourself, even though you're constantly trying to grow and change yourself.
It's so interesting that you bring up initially about how you kind of view yourself in relation to this conversation around success, because that has been brought up by everyone that I've had on this little mini series, whatever you want to call it, so far. And to me, anyways, it helps me know that I chose the right people for this, because everyone who has done all these incredible things, whether that's, play professional sport, appear on TV, work with professional athletes, whatever it is, they literally have this unique view of themselves where even though they've done all these things that other people are like, yeah, that's my life goal. I want to do this. I want to do that. They still feel like they haven't fully made it and hit their full potential yet. And I think that's one of the most interesting things to me is the people that I look at as highly successful look at themselves and say, I'm not there yet. There's so much more to go. And I think that goes back to that concept that you brought up about how success is not the destination. It's the journey. It's an ongoing process. It's not getting the rock to the top of the mountain. It's continuing to find a new way to push the rock every single freaking day, over and over and over again, and finding a way to fall in love with that concept of pushing the rock up the hill. I think that's very well said, but also something that very few people, I think, understand about this concept is, again, I think so many make it about the destination when in reality, it's about all those little things that you go through on the day to day. And as you mentioned too, achieving success or pursuing any of these different things comes with a lot of unique things that you might not have seen or foreseen, if you will. You mentioned pressure, and it's like, a lot of people look at that and they complain about it, or, oh my gosh, look at all the stress I'm under. When in reality, I think maybe we have the wrong mindset about that. Maybe we should reframe it to what a privilege it is to be under this pressure, to be in this position where I get to be the one who makes the decision. I get to be the one who's responsible for this, because I feel like those situations of high pressure, pressure is what turns crap into diamonds, for lack of a better way to put it. It's like that'll bring out the best in you, and I think challenge you to see what you're truly capable of. But I just find a lot of people don't view it like that.
Absolutely. And kind of going back to what you were saying about how it's more so in the process versus the destination. I kind of equate it to, if you think about if in sports, if you're playing a game, say you win the game, but you played like crap, are you going to be happy with it? That's why it's so important to define success for yourself, because if you are dependent on a certain accolade or a certain certification, then really you're letting everyone else kind of define your success, because your success is dependent on how everyone else is also performing, rather than looking in at yourself and kind of defining that for yourself.
I want to point out that you speak to that from the athlete lens yourself, right? You were a D1 swimmer at South Carolina, and I point out different unique sports like swimming or ski racing a lot, because it's like, unlike some of these other field-based sports where maybe you've got 90 minutes and, if you make a mistake 2 minutes into the game, hey, look, I've got 85 minutes or whatever it is to make up for it. I've got the rest of the game ahead of me. In swimming, they don't let you audible your race because you didn't have the start that you wanted, right? You have one shot. So it's like, if it doesn't go like you wanted it to, like you mentioned, it's like, you have to find a way to get the next one just how you want it and hammer away at the next opportunity that you get, because there's not always going to be a chance to make up for those missed opportunities. It's just a matter of how do you learn from it and make sure that it doesn't happen again the next time.
Absolutely. I think a lot of my values have come from my experience in swimming. Obviously, you're racing other people, but at the same time, you're also racing the clock. So you're racing your own personal best time that you've had before. And like you said, I was also a sprinter. So for a 50 freestyle, you have 21 seconds. So time can add up really quick if you have even the smallest mistake, or if you take a half second for a breath a little too long, or if you don't do the right thing at the right time. So it's all about timing, trusting yourself, um, and just being able to put everything together with the right opportunity.
Absolutely. Mayor, I feel like we could probably talk about this all day long. I always appreciate any conversation I get to have with you that way, whether that's a 2 hour conversation when you're out on a walk in the sunshine, or whether it's a 20-minute podcast conversation that way. Is there anything that we missed as we were chatting today, or anything else that you wanted to share with those listening?
And I guess the biggest thing would just be, from a success standpoint, is it's also not just about your own success, right? It's about, like you said, like trying to bring as many people with you to the mountaintop as you can. So I think in times where it does get hard, when you're able to remind yourself that you're not just doing it for yourself, and there's other people involved, and that kind of sports like team atmosphere kind of comes into play there as well, then you're able to push through those times a little bit more, because you could have something going on in your personal life, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because you're coming forward, you're putting in that effort for someone else, right? So it's not just for yourself, or if you don't feel like doing it that day, like again, it doesn't matter. You're gonna show up and you're gonna do what you need to do for the betterment of someone else.
Right, finding a way to make it bigger than yourself, if you will. I love that. And Mayor, for people who want to find out more about you and keep up to date with all the incredible stuff you're doing in the space, where can they find you at online and all?
So the easiest way is probably through Instagram, at marin.dpt. And then I also have a website, which is performance.com.
Awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything Mairyn is doing through her business, online, and so on that way. Mairyn, this was awesome. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. Reagan, welcome back to the podcast. It's so great to see you again. For people who maybe missed our last episode, would you mind reminding them who you are and how incredible you are?
Oh, incredible. That's a very nice word. I am a former professional ice hockey player. I played D1 pro. I'm from Mississippi. Have kind of a crazy journey with hockey, but now I'm on a mission to help the next generation of athletes. And I primarily do that through hockey and social media. But yeah, just always looking for ways to grow the game.
Absolutely. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're the first women's ice hockey player to go professional from Mississippi, which is absolutely incredible. And you're someone that, by my own definition of success, I think you've blown it out of the water, from your sport to the empowerment and impact that you have on the next generation of athletes. Like, you're that person as far as I'm concerned, Reagan. But I'm really curious, how do you define success? Because I feel like if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers as to what that is and what that looks like that way.
I think for me, I always, because like you can quantify in so many different ways, whether it's on social media or it's in person or you're just talking to players as you go throughout your journey. But for me, like I think of success as if I help people and they find value out of what I'm giving them. And so it's not like, oh, I go score 40 goals a season. Like that's not really success to me. I mean, it may be for some people, especially for an NHL and you're getting paid to do it. But for me, like success is always seeing the growth in a player or seeing the growth in a friend that I've helped. And I take a lot of pride in helping people. So I'll give myself that in success.
I love that. It's that process of lifting others up and helping them to do things that maybe they couldn't do without your assistance that way. That makes so much sense to me. But obviously, in order to achieve success, there's always trade-offs, I like to call them, right? In order to become a professional ice hockey player, there's a lot of time put into practice, things missed and given up. Some of the athletes we've talked with were telling me how they skipped their high school events like proms and stuff in order to train or travel for sport and beyond that way. What is it kind of, I don't know what I want to say, cost you, or what have you had to give up in order to get to this phase in your life and career that way?
I've sacrificed so much. I mean, I think every athlete understands it, but especially in high school, whenever I was traveling so much, like my mom would drive me 12 hours to Pittsburgh, 12 hours back. And I missed a lot of school. I missed like friend development time. I missed all of the dances you could possibly imagine. I didn't get to go out on weekends with my other friends in college because I was playing games, and then missed weddings. Like the amount that you miss, it's pretty challenging. But like when you have goals that you want to achieve, I think it makes it a lot easier. And especially when you're surrounded by people that have the same goals in mind as you, and you know that you're all sacrificing the same thing for like the same goal that you have in mind. So I think sports come with a lot of sacrifices, but at a good cost.
Absolutely. And I'd imagine to a certain extent, it probably doesn't even feel like a sacrifice, right? Like if you're going to turn around, it's like I would imagine you probably wouldn't do anything different. It's like, yeah, I'd take that 12-hour drive any day of the week because look at where I'm at now and look at what you've gotten out of it because of all that time you invested earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Like I literally could not think of anything else I'd rather do than be at a rink on a Saturday night. Even like to this day, like if I can go play ice hockey, I'll just go do it. Even if like my friends are going out, maybe I'll meet up with them after. But like hockey has been my life for as long as I remember.
Well, that's the reason there's the beer league, right?
Yep, exactly. I had a 2-hour skate on Saturday night instead of going out.
That's absolutely incredible. And I'll, again, highly impressed by you and all that you've been able to accomplish in your sport on social media and just the overall impact that you have that way. For people that are looking to have an impact similar to you that way, what kind of advice or insights do you offer them based on your own journey and experiences?
I always say start small. Like start in your community, start with like the people that you know, because people will look at what I've done and what I continue to do right now and be like, "Oh, like I'm never going to make it there." But this was not made in one day. Like this was 15 plus years in the making at least. And like for me, whenever I started coaching, I literally started working with like the same program that I was already playing in, except working with like the 14U whenever I was a 19U player. And so I don't think that it has to be anything crazy, but you really just have to start somewhere. So as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you'll be just fine.
Did you always know this is where you were going to end up and this is what the future was going to look like? Or did we just kind of figure it out as we went?
Oh yeah, I had it down to a T, everything that I was gonna do. No, I'm just kidding. I had some goals, but I think a lot of life in general is just figuring out as you go. Like nobody has all the answers. If you ask like an older person who's maybe in their 60s or 70s, like what do you want to how did you know what you want to do? They're like, I still don't know. So if that gives you any sort of clarity, I have no idea either.
Absolutely. Yeah. To your point, just get in motion and stay in motion at the end of the day. I think a lot of times people think they have to have it all planned out and figured out. And on one hand, I get it. You know, you want to have a general direction that you're heading in. But on the other hand, all roads eventually will lead to Rome. It's like, you know, one might take you 5 years longer, but you're eventually going to get to that same destination. So the sooner you start driving along that metaphorical journey, the sooner you figure out which ones lead where and where you have to end up in the long game.
Yep, 100%.
Absolutely. Reagan, I really appreciate your time and insights. Is there anything else you wanted to share with people listening today?
I think it's like getting to one of those times in the year where like your mental health, you like start to think about it again, where it's gonna start getting darker sooner and it's gonna get colder, unless you're like in Florida or you're in North Carolina like us. But a big thing is just like keep up with your community during these times. Like winter is not fun for a lot of people. And if you can be in your community, if you can stay active, if you talk to the people that are close to you, like you'll be able to make it through this season. I've already talked to a few people that are feeling it right now, but your mental health is the most important thing. And if it's not good, then you don't really have much. So I think staying close to your community is really important.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. At the end of the day, find your tribe and be a part of a tribe, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's your athletes and teammates or whether that's freaking like chess club on a Friday night. Hey, I don't care. I don't judge.
Nobody's judging.
Just find something that keeps you moving and fills your cup that way. I completely agree. Reagan, for people who want to find out more about you, stay up to date with all the amazing things you're doing on social that way, where can they find you at?
On Instagram, ray.rust, and then on TikTok, Reagan Rust.
That's awesome. We'll link to those in the description below as well. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything Reagan is up to. Reagan, always a pleasure. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Jaeda, welcome back to the podcast. It's always such a pleasure to be able to talk with you. For people who maybe missed our last episode or haven't seen you on TikTok or Instagram or any other platform lately, would you mind reminding them about who you are and all the incredible things that you do day in and day out?
Yeah. Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me on the podcast again. I'm super excited to be back. My name is Jaeda. If you follow me on social media, you probably know me as Jaeda Sky. I do my own content creation, influencing, that side of the world. But then I also started my own media agency, Jaeda Sky Media, about 2 years ago. Through the media agency, I kind of do the 360 of social media is kind of how I put it. I do consulting and strategy. I manage platforms. I create content for other businesses. And then most recently, I created a course teaching social media fundamentals to help out business owners to optimize their social media presence, as well as students and just other people who want to get into the influencing world, who want to monetize their social media platform. So created this course to be able to teach them, and I'm working on partnering with different universities to be able to get that into schools and make it free for students, but then also just selling it to anyone who's interested in learning those kind of fundamentals.
That's absolutely incredible. And one of the many things that I just am so impressed by with you is that you've always kind of gone your own way ever since I knew you. Is you knew what you're after and you just find a way to make it happen. And I realized that there's a absolute grind that comes with that. And we were talking about it a little bit before about how many hours we put into these things, right? Like I think everyone looks at something like social media or entrepreneurship and they think it's going to be easy and they're just going to snap their fingers and they're going to basically win the lottery and they're going to be there. But in reality, it takes so much time and planning and effort. And then on top of that, to take it to the level where you're now having an impact on others and helping them to do the same thing and kind of pay it forward, if you will, is absolutely incredible. By every account, I consider you to be a huge success. However, everyone seems to define success a little bit different. It looks so different from one person to the next. I'd love to hear about how you define success. What does that look like for you, Jaeda?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a great thing to dive into. I'd say there's different things define success for me in different, I guess, parts or aspects of my life. I'd say specifically also for the influencer side of things, I have certain milestones or goals that I like to hit to kind of make sure I'm like on a successful track. So I'd say there's one thing that's kind of my next milestone in the influencing world that I'd kind of be a check off of success, and that would be, I don't know if you've heard of different brand trips that brands do. And so going on my first brand trip, I think is my next like check off of, success level. But, if I go back a couple years ago, my first paid brand deal would be, that kind of check off of success. I mean, going all the way back to when I first started, I worked with a lot of coffee shops. And so I'd reach out to different coffee shops offering my services. And, obviously when you start out, you get some no's. And so my first yes, that was like, wow, that's successful for me. And then once you get a lot more yeses, it almost, it feels like you need another milestone to hit. And then it was like, okay, the first time I get paid, that's going to be a big success. So I think for me, I don't know if there ever will be a time where I fully am like, okay, I am successful, hands off, I can be done. I think it just kind of is, the milestones get maybe farther in between and a bigger goal to hit. And so, on the media agency side, my first thing was getting my first client. then eventually I hit that check mark and I was like, wow, I'm successful in the level that I'm at right now. And then after creating the course, I was like, I really want to get it into the university that I went to. I went to James Madison University, and it took a lot of networking and a lot of perseverance to get them interested in it and connected to the right person. But everyone was interested. It was just finding the right person. And so then a couple weeks ago, I signed a contract with them, and that's now getting implemented into the school. So I mean, that was a huge success in my eyes of a check off. But then I think also in my personal life, there's also different successes of friendships and family and life goals. We were just talking a little while ago. I just signed a lease to a new apartment in New York City, which is super exciting, and that's been a huge life goal of mine, to be able to move to New York and be in the city, and it opens up all kind of opportunities. So in my head, that's a huge success. I don't know if I'd say like, okay, I'm successful, hands off, time to relax. But I think I define success more in milestones and stages instead of just a yes or no answer.
Absolutely. I'm very similar to you in that sense. And I feel like, at least for me, success is not necessarily a destination. It's not, when I get to this point, I'm going to put the towel up and I'm not going to have to work anymore. I'm not going to have to do anything. I think it's more so just the journey and the opportunities you get along the way at the end of the day, right? Like, I think if success for you is a destination that once you hit it, you're done, you stop, then life is just not fulfilling. I think it's more about the journey, and I could be a little biased in that because obviously it's my own line of thinking. So obviously it's clearly great, but I truly think there's something to be said about celebrating those highs and lows and the hills and valleys that you get across whatever you're working towards. And it doesn't really matter what that thing is that you're working towards. It could be in athletics, it could be in entrepreneurship, it could be social media, whatever. If you're working towards something and have that goal, then I think finding a way to enjoy that journey and the process that it takes to get there and then move on to the next bigger and better goal and the next bigger and better milestone is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%.
On top of that, obviously, there's always what I call an opportunity cost to success, right? Like, a lot of athletes we talk with tell me, well, we had to drive 8 to 10 hours a week just to get back and forth to practice, or I missed my prom, I missed my homecoming dance because we were traveling or we were at this tournament. And that success that people so seek often eludes them if they're not willing to give up certain little things that way. I'm curious, what do you feel like you've had to maybe miss out on in order to achieve the level of success you have on social media, in entrepreneurship, and in life in general?
I'd say a lot started in college. I started college during COVID, and so that was obviously, tough within itself, and there was a little bit less going on, which I'd say pros and cons, and I think there's definitely some things that I missed out on in college because of it. But on the flip side, I think there was, this whole social media world. I was not, that wasn't my plan going into college. I went into college wanting to be a physical therapist, which is kind of funny, and obviously still love and respect that world. But honestly, if it wasn't because of COVID, I don't know if I would have gone into social media. And so I think that was really where it started. But there was a lot that I gave up, once COVID kind of started going away and getting into more the social aspects of college. And there were, most nights, I was not out socializing. I was, in my dorm room or in my room, editing stuff and filming stuff. And I lived in my sorority house sophomore year, which, you can imagine how kind of rambunctious that is. And so a lot of the times I would wait for everyone to leave the house on the weekend, so I would be able to have quiet time to film and edit and do everything. And so I spent a lot of nights alone in that house working on my own business and working on my social media, which I didn't quite know the potential of yet, but I knew it had potential to turn into something. And so I gave up, I think, a lot of that world, and I kind of flipped my schedule around to be able to do work at certain times and stayed up pretty late, doing school work, so that way I'd be able to have time, during the next day to go work with a coffee shop or go work with, whatever brand. And so I think a lot of that part of college I kind of gave up or prioritized different to be able to get what I was doing off the ground. And even now, I was in New York this past summer, and then I'm moving back there again in a couple weeks. And there's different things that you say no to because you're prioritizing different things, or different friendships that you want to keep in your life because you want to surround yourself with similar people. I think there's also a mental component that a lot of people don't see, especially in the entrepreneurship world of entrepreneurship and the social media world kind of going hand in hand of it's kind of a 24/7 thing. And so you're giving up a little bit of that work-life balance that, maybe if you had more of a typical 9 to 5, you'd be able to kind of clock out and it would be your own time. But in the entrepreneurship world, and specifically social media world, it really is a 24/7 thing, and you are constantly in content mode. You're constantly in social media mode. Even, some people use scrolling on social media as a way to de-stress and relax at the end of a day. When I'm scrolling on social media, it's like a market research thing. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I don't like that idea. I should create this better. It inspires you to do something. I'm creating things into folders. And so I think every aspect kind of turns into a content opportunity. And so you're giving up a little bit of that work-life balance.
Absolutely. And building off of that, I still remember one of our early conversations. You were telling me about how you literally keep a journal by your bed because some nights you just wake up in the middle of the night with ideas and you want to write them down. It's like there's never really a off switch that way. And I think it's one of those things that when you're young, like put the time in, put the effort in. It's like, to a certain extent, yeah, you might remember some of those crazy nights and stuff, but in reality, for me, life is not just about 1 or 2 crazy nights that occur in college. It's about something bigger and better. Like, looking long term, it's like, look, bro, I want a family someday. And it's like, I don't want to have to be able to, I want to be able to step away from work and be there when that enters the picture. But if I don't invest the time now, I'm not going to get to enjoy that later in life. So I think knowing that if you put your head down and do the work early on, it pays dividends later in life. Like it just sets you up for so much more of that like long-term gratification, I guess the technical term is. And I feel like a lot of times people don't understand the transactional component of that you have to kind of give up a little bit of that short-term enjoyment for that long-term satisfaction. But ultimately that long-term satisfaction is just so much greater in my opinion. And it's stuff that money can't buy. If you want to go booze cruising for a weekend, you can go out and buy that and do that this weekend, have fun. But, if you want something like a thriving business or a booming social media account, you can't just purchase that and have it the next day. It takes a lot of time and commitment and grinding to get there. And obviously that's why you're here, because you're doing such incredible things like that.
I think also making sure that you're picking something you're actually passionate about and want to be doing. So that way, like for me, a lot of times when I'm doing things, it doesn't feel like I'm necessarily giving up other things. It just feels like this is my life and this is what I'm choosing to do. And so I think if you're creating a business out of something that you don't want to be doing, it feels like you're giving up a lot more. And I when I mentor and coach different people in the social media world, when they're talking about what they want to post, some people will come up with these ideas of what they want to post. And I'm like, okay, do you enjoy talking about that? A big one is makeup right now. Everyone wants to get in the makeup world, and I'll talk to these people that want to get into the influencing world. They're like, I'm going to start making these get ready with me videos, putting on makeup and doing whatever. And I'm like, okay, what makeup products do you like? Whatever. And some people are like, oh, I don't really actually like wearing makeup that much. Like, I don't really like doing my makeup. And I'm like, okay, well, why would you be posting about that? And they're like, oh, because it's trendy. It's, what people are doing now. I'm like, you're going to burn out from that so quickly because you're not doing what you actually want to do and what you have a passion for. Like, you need to pick things that you have a passion for that you want to talk about, because you'll never run out of content ideas. It'll never feel, truly like work. Or if you're, missing out on something else to be able to work on your own business, you should feel excited to do that. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm, giving up all this stuff to be able to, do something else. And so I think for me, being on 24/7, obviously you want to have a bit of a balance, but it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm giving up much, because I just enjoy it so much that I want to be doing it all the time.
And I think you do such an incredible job at redefining what work is and looks like. And I've noticed that even in my own life. Like, this past month, I was in Las Vegas for 5-6 days for a conference trip event that way with a company. And it's like I got to extend my stay in Las Vegas, where it was 90 and sunny, an extra day, sit poolside for a few hours. And it's like, wait a sec, I'm getting paid to be here. I didn't pay for this flight or this hotel. I'm just here soaking up the sun and loving life. It's incredible. But until you make that leap, and until you do the things that it takes to get to those points, you're never able to experience it. So I certainly think that there's something powerful to be said about this. And I think that this conversation is one that obviously belongs in the university audience, which is why you're doing so many amazing things to teach that next generation this kind of concept or thought process, if you will, of how to kind of become your own boss and your own brand and make your own generational wealth, if you will. I really respect it, Jaeda. I feel like we could probably talk about this all day long. Is there anything in particular we missed or anything that you wanted to build off of?
No, I mean, I feel like we kind of covered the premise of what you wanted to talk about, and I think this podcast is awesome. I mean, I'm personally excited to listen to it and hear everyone else of, you know, what they say and how they define different things. And I think also the thing to remember is everything works differently for different people. You know, it's not a copy and paste mold, which is exactly, you know, kind of the definition of what entrepreneurship is not. You know, it's not a mold that you're following. It's not a path that you're following. I think that's almost been my, you know, kind of biggest mental obstacle of doing my own thing, especially coming out of post-grad and before thinking I was going to be on this physical therapy track of everything laid out in front of you. You know, I did have plans that I wanted to open up my own practice one day. So I always had the entrepreneurship in the back of my head, but a lot of the more traditional paths, it just laid out in front of you and you follow things and, you know, maybe things come up a little bit differently, but you're relatively on the same path. I think with the entrepreneurship side of things, you're really just creating it as you go, and there's no ceiling for potential. You know, sky's the limit kind of thing. And so I think that's really important to remember for people to, you know, not put themselves in a box and not just try to follow the person in front of them.
Absolutely. For people who want to find out more about you and keep up to date with all the amazing things you're doing on social media, where can they find you at?
My social media would be awesome. It is Jaeda_Sky. And then my media agency is Jaeda Sky Media. I also have a website, jaedasky.com.
Awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything Jaeda is up to. Jaeda, this was awesome. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Megan, welcome back to the podcast. So great to see you again. For people who maybe missed our first episode, would you remind them about who you are and all the amazing things you're doing in the sports space that way?
Yeah, hi, I'm Megan McKay. I play Division I women's ice hockey at Clarkson University. I'm a senior right now with dreams of playing professionally and, you know, just playing at the highest level possible and completing my senior year doing an MBA here. And, you know, hockey's just really taken me around the world and met so many great people and so many fun experiences that's taught me a lot.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And by many means, I would consider you to be highly successful by my own definition. From playing D1 sport, traveling the world for sport, snagging a master's degree in the process, and on top of that, working to transition to the professional level as well. To me, that is very successful. But I've noticed everyone defines success differently. Some define it by a record with like wins and losses column. Some define it by their individual performance. Others define it by their team performance. Others define it by something completely different. How do you define success in relation to you, yourself, you as an athlete, whatever it is that way?
Yeah, I think success is the biggest roller coaster ride. It's full of emotions. It's the end all be all. It's always the goal to feel that, you know, inner work, that ethic has kind of finally come to fruition. And I think to be successful, it takes sacrifice and passion. It's certainly not easy. It requires toughness physically, but also mentally to keep going, even through failures. And I think that's the biggest proponent of success is how you take failure head on when times get tough and you want to quit. But in those moments, that's what defines you. You have to really believe in yourself before anyone can believe in you and before any success is really possible.
And you saying that about failure, I feel like failure is almost part of the recipe for success. Like a lot of people fail multiple times before they get it right, right? I think Edison had like 1,093 attempts at the light bulb before he created the freaking thing. And now it's in like every house ever that way. Like it's crazy to look at how many times you have to throw stuff against the wall before it actually starts to stick. And I feel like, correct me if you feel different, but I feel like someone's willingness to just throw stuff against the wall over and over and over again and just relentlessly continue through that process ultimately dictates the ability for them to succeed or to kind of be forgotten, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, certainly. And I think of Michael Jordan all the time, the statistics about how many game-winning shots he's missed. He had to miss those. He had to, miss the shots in practice during the regular season and whatnot for him to be successful and get those championships. And it's for any athlete and for any individual for that matter, whether it's your job, your life. Like, I'm sure there's many people out there who have, been turned away from interviews before they found, their key in society. So I think, yeah, that failure, success would not feel so sweet and so special if it weren't for all the challenging times before it.
Absolutely. No, that makes so much sense to me. And as you were talking about your definition of success, you mentioned the word sacrifice. And it sounds like you had to give up a lot of things in order to get to this point in your life that way. And we've talked with other individuals, like Reagan was telling me how she'd spend 12 hours in the car different times just to get to hockey matches and practices and that sort of thing. Todd was telling me about how, he had to kind of hunker down and grind through a PhD and a fellowship program and all these crazy different academic accomplishments that I'm just over here looking at like, my gosh, dude, like I could never. So for you, what did you have to kind of give up or, maybe trade off in order to get this success that you've achieved thus far?
Yeah, I think, what it reminds me of is like leaving school early, my parents like flying in from work, to pick me up to drive me 2.5 hours to a hockey practice and, not getting home till 2 a.m., them still getting to go to work, the countless hours my dad put on our minivan. I think that thing could have made it to the moon and back. It had over 400,000 miles on it, just like the sacrifice from them as well. The hours they took, of them believing in me and wanting the best for me and to give me every opportunity possible. And, that did mean leaving home at age 13 to go to boarding school because I wanted to pursue my passion and I wanted to be successful in sport. And that was very hard, like leaving your friends, kind of giving up your childhood a little bit earlier to live on your own. That was like the most heart-wrenching decision possible, leaving your parents that early, but I know it all worked out for a reason.
I'd imagine you were absolutely terrified the first day too, like age 13, living on your own, like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Right? It's like so easy to second guess yourself when stuff like that comes about. And I remember, right after college for me, moving to a town where I literally knew no one and somehow I'm going to start a PT clinic here. There was that moment of like, what the heck did I just get myself into? Like it was like one of those like, oh shit, I'm in this crazy moment, crazy situation, and there's no turning back kind of realizations that way. But I almost feel like you need to have a realization like that in order to be successful. Like you almost have to push all your chips in and go all in because otherwise you go through life wondering like, hey, I didn't give it my all. Maybe if I did, I would have achieved what I set out to. But because I didn't go all in, now I never know if I did or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. Like, if you want to be successful in anything, you have to jump 2 feet in. You can't be looking over your shoulder thinking, what if? And you got to live life with no regrets.
What is jumping all in to the transition to pro ice hockey going to look like for you? Because I'd imagine that's kind of the next big leap that you're looking at after this season.
Yeah, right now I'm super focused on like having an amazing season right here, being present with my team. We got a really good team this year, and the goal is to win our regular season, make it to the national championship, win a national championship, and then I think all the chips will fall into place. Like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I think my journey thus far has not been easy, but it's brought me to this moment for a reason, and I'm so excited for it.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I think that's the other piece too, is everything happens for a reason at the end of the day. You might not recognize it in the moment, but every success, every failure, every win, every loss, there's something bigger that we might not understand in the moment at play. And somehow it all works together for the greater good at the end of the day. And it's like, sometimes things don't go our way. We get a little upset, but at the end of the day, those things make us better, and it all happens for a reason in the long run.
Yeah, I love that about sports and just, life in general. There's so many lessons to be learned, so many teaching moments. I mean, you're not going to win every game. You're not going to, always ace a test and whatnot. But if you learn from it, that's how you're going to grow and how you're going to find success.
Absolutely. And that's how you pay it forward too, right? Like, you get those like next generation athletes coming up to you after the game saying that like you're the reason they keep going and you're the reason that they're still after it. And it's like that full circle kind of moment. It's great to see that way. You mentioned Michael Jordan before. Was there any other athlete figures that you kind of looked up to growing up that way?
It wasn't until more recently that I, kind of got into like the mental toughness and, my teammates started calling me the Navy SEAL. So I was really looking up to like David Goggins and just the mindset that they have to really just push yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're not, challenging yourself every day, what are you doing to get better? Yeah, those kind of like Navy SEAL mentalities it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I love that. Megan, is there anything else that you wanted to share with people listening about success and what it takes in order to be successful in any endeavor that you pursue?
Yeah, I think just all success has to do is internal for you. You can't let, outside noise deter you, especially if you have aspirations that are far beyond what people can see as clear. As long as you see it in your head, it might not seem like an easy path, but the more you stick with it, the more you challenge yourself, the more you believe in yourself, it's all going to work out for a reason. And you just got to believe in yourself, and success is possible for anyone.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Megan, for people who want to find out more about you, keep up to date with all the amazing stuff you're doing and so on that way, where can they find you at?
Yeah, my name is Megan McKay, and on Instagram it's just Megan M. McKay, and TikTok is Megan McKay03. Yeah, and thank you again, Dan. I mean, your podcast is doing such great work for all the athletes out there who really want to elevate their performance, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time, Megan. Thank you so much for your insights and for being here. Kyle, welcome back to the podcast. I'm pretty sure this is your fourth time appearing on the show that way, man. For people who aren't familiar with you, maybe they missed our last episode, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all the amazing things you've got going on from a chiropractic standpoint to entrepreneurship standpoint and beyond that way, man?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me back. It's been a couple years. I know we've stayed in touch kind of behind the scenes, but yeah, it's an honor to be back, especially celebrating your upcoming 500th episode. It's incredible.
Absolutely, man. And
Yeah.
again, it's like crazy to think about where we first connected way back when, I think it was like episode 60 or something crazy like that. Like we've known each other for a long time, dude. For people who aren't familiar with you and all the amazing stuff you're doing out in Kentucky, would you mind filling them in a little bit about your day to day and that sort of thing, man?
Yeah, so I am a sports chiropractor by trade. So I own and operate Kentucky Sports Clinic in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's a multidisciplinary clinic where we have chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy, nutritionists. And so we really focus on not exclusive to, but focus on the active population. So that's the main day to day. But then I also work as a team chiropractor and on the medical staff for the University of Kentucky athletic program. And I'm with the football team and then the track and field and cross country the teams as well. And that's one thing that's been really fun, just seeing their the special athletes they have that are working their tails off to achieve that championship level. And then outside of that, I have a couple side gigs where I created a myofascial release tool called the CTM band. It's basically like I call it the evolution of a floss band. And those are the main things that take up the day to day for sure.
Absolutely, man. You're someone that I consider to be highly successful by every definition, as far as I'm concerned, from an entrepreneurship standpoint to an overall clinician standpoint, working with some of the best athletes in the country, to balancing all of that with a family and still finding time to compete on your own athletic pursuits that way, in the running space that way. It certainly seems like you've got it all going on and you're absolutely crushing it. I'd love to hear more about how you define success for yourself that way. Does that kind of tie into a specific goal, or is it more along the journey of life that you've been on, or what does success really look like and mean to you, Kyle?
If you were to say one thing that I would attribute success to, I would say failure. That'd be the first thing I would say. And that that takes me back. So I ran track and cross country at the Division I level in college, and even getting started on that journey, it was failure. I remember as a kid, getting just my butt handed to me in races, and then I remember that feeling of, wow, that didn't feel good. I don't want to experience that again. I'm going to start, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get a little bit better. So that would be the first time I remember using failure as motivation. And then, getting into the sports chiropractic field, that started with failure too. In college, I was hurt a lot of the time due to various reasons, but I kept getting stress fractures, when I would accumulate, months of training. And I would get a little bit frustrated with the type of healthcare we had on hand, that I wasn't really focusing on the why I was getting hurt. It was just the diagnosing what was going on, and go take 6 or 8 weeks and train in the pool and then jump back out there. So that's what really started my interest in becoming a manual therapist in the chiropractic field. And then beyond that, I remember getting started after I graduated chiropractic school. And at the time in Kentucky, chiropractors were direct access, but PT wasn't. And I knew I kind of wanted to do a bit of a hybrid type of thing there. And I just went the chiropractic route because it was, at the time, in 2010, it was easier to form my own niche and form my own practice. So even when I got done in school, and knew I wanted to start my own practice, I formed the business plan of what I needed and some startup capital, and started going around to banks. And this idea I had, I figured was a slam dunk. But I think I went to 17 different banks or other financing institutions and got 17 no's, because they were like, no, this doesn't sound like a good idea. And so even that was like failure after failure. But if there's, if you can have that competitive drive, especially for something you feel very strongly about and have a passion for, failure is the gasoline on the fire, at least in my experience.
That's come up so often as we've been talking with athletes and different individuals in this little series we're putting together thus far, is the relationship with failure has to be almost like your best friend in a way, And examples from Michael Jordan missing game-winning shots to Edison attempting over 1,090 times to make a freaking light bulb, and now it's in every home in America ever. You just have to have this good relationship with messing up and not having things go your way, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think your overall resilience to be able to continue to throw stuff against the wall when it seems like nothing is sticking is going to determine if you make it or just get left behind. And I think ultimately, if you just try enough, if you strike out 17 times trying to get a bank loan for a business, but you continue to push and push and push, eventually something goes your way. It might not be immediately, but I think if you push hard enough and long enough, you'll get what you're after that way. And I think that concept of resiliency as you're working towards whatever goal you have set out to pursue really speaks volumes that way.
Yeah. And that's why I'd say this daily to the athletes I'm working with, is when you get hurt, that is about the most useful data you can have to then apply to your training, and come back stronger and smarter, and to make sure it doesn't happen again. So it's so easy to get down in the dumps when you get hurt. And it stinks, but there's absolutely all kinds of silver linings to use it to strengthen everything and come back stronger than you were before.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And obviously, success comes at a bit of an opportunity cost, or a trade-off, or whatever the correct technical term for it is. Essentially, the way I look at it is, in order to be successful at something, it requires a lot of time, effort, sweat equity, if you will. And that means you're not doing something else. And that something else might be more desirable in the moment, right? Like, I'm sure for you, you'd probably rather be spending time with your family than filming a CTM course. But, hey, we have to film a Con Ed course in order for the company to continue to grow, to teach practitioners how to use the implement and so on that way. So what kind of trade-offs have you had to make in order to achieve this level of success in seemingly everything that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked with lots of people about this, and it's friends too. It's like when you have that much going on, it's almost easy. It makes things easier because the stuff that's truly important to you rises to the top, and the stuff that doesn't just kind of disappears. So that might be, for me, time with family, leading an active lifestyle in the form of running and still competing because it's still a lot of fun to me. Stuff like that rises to the top, and then the stuff that kind of disappears. Sometimes it's people, and going out with friends, staying out late. Yeah, it's actually made things easier in my opinion, because you have to be so regimented, and your day has to be segmented. It's been a good thing in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think building off of that as well, it's not necessarily a game of like giving up something. Let me rephrase that. I consider it to be something about your relationship with that delayed gratification at the end of the day, right? Because sure, like going out late on the weekend might be more desirable in the moment, but in 5 to 10 years, you might remember a couple of those weekends, but you might be in a drastically different life spot if you didn't decide to make those early life transactions, if you will. You're investing in your future in a way. And I know to a certain extent, people hear that all the time and they're like, hey, I don't want to miss out on the current moment, the present moment. But Todd and I talked about this earlier. It's really the part of the success and part of the happiness and enjoyment you get is the journey that you're on. It's not just getting to the destination, but finding ways to celebrate those little wins and losses and highs and lows along the way, I think.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. I realize we can probably talk about this stuff all day long. Is there anything in particular that we missed or anything else you want to share around the concept of success that way, man?
No, I mean, to put it back on you, like it's just, I can't believe you're at 500, and you've been so persistent and consistent with putting out content and keeping and growing your network and relationships. It's really impressive. I'm proud of you.
I appreciate that, man. And obviously, I really appreciate your support from the early days that way, back when I was still in school and had a pretty dumb looking cover art. But you know what? Hey, we make it. For people who want to find out more about you, Kyle, where can they find you online and that sort of thing?
Yes, I mean the social handles are all Dr. Kyle Bowling, and then my practice website is Kentucky Sports Clinic, and then if you're interested in learning more about the product I created, it's the website is ctm.band, and then I'm on hand to answer any questions at any time people may have.
That's perfect. And is that the TikTok handle as well? Are we on TikTok now?
Not. I need someone to do it for me. That's the problem.
No, I get that, man. That's awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything Kyle is up to. This was awesome, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bryan, welcome back to the podcast. Pretty sure this is your third time on, man. It's always a pleasure. For people who aren't familiar with you, all the amazing stuff you've done in the world of baseball and now what you're doing in the performance and rehab space, would you mind filling them in a bit about who you are and all that you got going on?
Sure, man. Yeah, thanks for having me again. Third time, first solo feature. But yeah, so I'm the owner, founder of Hex Physical Therapy and Performance in Columbia, Maryland, currently. It's been a little over a year. So July of 24 is when I opened this up. It's been good, man. I mean, it's still a solo show right now. It's still just myself. I'm going to ride this out a little bit longer here. Just continue to kind of bite the bullet with the volume on my own right now. It's I can handle it right now, man, which is good. I do think I need to make the next step and eventually hire here soon. And we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But yeah, for the most part, I'm working with baseball athletes primarily. It probably takes up about 70% of my caseload right now. I'm seeing the remaining 30% are kind of a mix of everything. I see a bunch of different athletes. I have a weird little like strongman niche developing, thanks to a big name patient of mine who refers me a good bit of other strongman patients. And then just your gen pop, just a little bit of everything, keep it spicy. And, the baseball world can get a little bit redundant with shoulders and elbows and strengthening rotator cuff 90% of the time. So it's nice to kind of spice things up that way. Strongman being quite a different treatment approach, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And you're one of those people that I look at as highly successful in every regard by my own definition that way. It's like, looking back, like you pitched in professional baseball, which like I never made it off the middle school mound. Like I was very short-lived from a baseball career standpoint. Like it's freaking difficult, especially, when you look at guys throwing like 80s, 90s consistently now. Like it's tough to like make it to that level. And I feel like people don't understand what it takes to make it to that pro level. But then on top of that, you transitioned and it's like, look, you're a married man, you have a family, you've got like a house, you've got a successful entrepreneur type business running on your own that way, that like you dictate everything, right? You set your hours, you decide who you want to see, who you don't want to see. Like you're in total control of all of that. And I think there's a lot of people that look at the life you live and they're going to say like, wow, that's exactly what I want in the future. But what I'd want to know is like, how the heck did we get here, man? Like, is this what you kind of always pictured for yourself? Is this kind of what your own definition of success looks like? Or how do you go about this whole conversation around what success even is that way, man?
I don't know, man. I don't know. No, I mean, I say that jokingly, but like semi-seriously, it's from the baseball side of things, I don't know, you're just like delusional enough to believe that's your goal since you're a kid, and you kind of just, your decisions are morphed by that goal, right? It's no different than setting a goal as an adult or something, right? Like if you're chasing that goal as a kid or an adult, you're gonna make decisions based on your willingness to achieve that goal. And I mean, I say naive or like naivete, like when I was a kid, like you just say like, I'm going to play professional baseball just like every other kid does. And if you don't have that approach, or if you don't have that perspective or that little bit of like craziness, then you're probably not going to make it. And I say this now, like even out of the vast majority of the guys that I played with that ended up making it to the big leagues, like almost all of them were delusional to the point where they didn't have like a backup plan. It was kind of a burn the boats approach. And all the more power to them, because I wasn't there. Like I always had PT as a fallback, and I don't think that's the reason I didn't make it, but who knows, maybe it was. But as far as like career goes and life and family and all that, like I'm notorious amongst my friends and my family for not being very like long-term strategic oriented. And kind of like a very much a go with the flow guy, and which is not like a person from New York would traditionally be. I'm very like chill and kind of see what comes and how it works. And I've been fortunate enough to, with that approach, like I guess take what comes and assess it accurately and determine whether or not I'm enjoying it, determine whether or not it's working with respect to what I want in life, and then either pivot or pursue. And if it's something that I enjoy and it's working and I want to kind of push further into it, I go for it. And if not, then kind of change course and see where it leads. And right now I'm kind of operating with like very little entrepreneurial experience, getting into opening my own clinic and practice. And honestly, it happened because I was in a baseball facility where I'm currently at now, about 3 miles away from my house, just in an off season one day. And I stepped in here, there was a wide open space and I saw it, and I immediately asked the owner like what his plans were with the space. And it happened way sooner than I expected it to, but again, go with the flow, and said like, I can't be in here in 6 months and watch somebody else in that spot and think, damn, I should have taken advantage. So I took the leap and went all in, and luckily I had the support of my wife, and it worked out. It's working out, I should say. It's definitely a learning process day in and day out, but yeah, just a matter of being open to learning, I guess, and being willing to do, you maybe throw the work-life balance out on the work side of things a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's so funny you say that. As part of this little series, we just did an episode, or a bit, I should say, with Bryan, who other Bryan, I should say, who has owned a clinic on his own for over 30 years now, and it's highly successful. Seeing, I don't quote me on this, but I believe he said somewhere around 100 visits a day. Like that's growth and scalability. But it's like, in order to get to that point, you got to put a lot of late nights and early mornings in. You've got to burn the candle at both ends. Like there's this grind and grit that it takes in order to get to that like top of the mountain or pinnacle or whatever you want to call it that everyone is trying to get to. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they can somehow get to that point without the work and effort that it takes. And it's like, I do think that there's a way to get there smarter and maybe save yourself a little bit of the work. And I'm still searching for that myself. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be willing to put the time in and finding ways to enjoy that journey that you're on, because there's good days and bad days. There's highs and there's lows. There's times when you feel like you've already hit that top of the mountain, and there's times that feel like they're, the lowest you've ever been, because it's like, shoot, like this is not going like I planned. Like this is something that I'm questioning now if I'm like going the right way or not. But I think if you don't have those moments where you kind of second guess a little bit, then it's not worth it in the end, because I think those struggles make the destination that much better.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's life, right? It's like, it's the contrast. If everything was sunshine and rainbows, nothing would mean anything. And there's got to be the good and the bad. There's got to be a contrast in both. And like you said, there's definitely going to be like the cliche ebbs and flows of life. There's going to be times where you're questioning and doubting and maybe unhappy, but I think understanding that those are temporary and that there are solutions, and working through those is like the reward. And where it's not so much of this tangible monetary reward, where of course that's great and tangible success is great, but it's really for me, I think the big part is proving to myself that I could overcome things that I didn't think I could do in the first place, or maybe that I wasn't prepared to do. Entrepreneurship in general just being the biggest thing. Like I didn't have an entrepreneurial bone in my body before opening this clinic, and here I am doing fine, and I think the choice from here moving forward, and this is I think where a lot of people run into maybe not problems, but a decision to make, where I'm a solopreneur now. Like I don't know where I want to take this. I got to figure out, like, at the caseload I'm at right now, I'm financially fairly comfortable, and I think growth would be more of a discomfort, but a temporary discomfort with the potential gain of being even more comfortable. And do I want to take on that risk? Do I want to take on that temporary discomfort? I think so, but I got to figure out if that's the right move right now. And I think that's the journey, though, right? You got to kind of push the limits to see what how things respond and how you respond. So yeah, that's how it works.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was about that concept of balance that way. And it's funny because everyone I've talked with as part of this so far defines balance and looks at balance differently. But, one of the unique things you have that not everyone that's been a part of this has is you have a family, right? You're married, you've got kids. How are you able to find a way to still play dad and husband at home while also growing and scaling a business, while also maintaining the network and the connections you have and doing all the things that you do?
Having an awesome wife, step one.
Jay is
seriously. Yeah, she holds it down, man. Hold it down is like an understatement. She's a go-getter herself, and she's fully on board with all this and super supportive. Obviously, it wouldn't work otherwise, and that's honestly super important for the people that are dating, married, whatever. Like, you guys got to be on the same page, and there's been struggles between her and myself with this, right? Where she's very much a push person, and I'm very much a let's see how things go kind of person. And that we have our exchanges with that, and it's good because it's a good contrast between the two of us. I think we both help each other out in that regard. But yeah, I mean, she's taking the load at home with the kids, and tell you what, my job's a lot easier than hers is with that with respect to the kids, man. It's a blessing, though. I mean, she's amazing with them. And it's really just making sure the time I do have with them is very high quality. Like, it's funny because it is a limiter in a sense, but it's also a benefit because it's a driving force, right? Like it's supporting and providing, and when you run into those times where you're unsure, uncertain, unmotivated, it's a good little reminder that like, this isn't for me, So, that's a balance for sure. And it's a challenge, but it's also a benefit. And I'm thankful that, my wife's in the situation that she is and she's able to do what she can do.
And taking it a step further back, obviously the two of you not only are navigating entrepreneurship and business owner life with two kids together right now, but obviously you also navigated life in minor league baseball together as well, which from what I've been told by you and several other individuals, life as a minor league baseball player is not always the easiest thing. You don't have millions of dollars coming in, and there's maybe less of a sense of job security as one might like when you're at that level, if you will, that way. How were you able to navigate the obstacles that come with minor league baseball and other sport that way, if you will? Because I find, again, everyone wants to get to that big league moment. Everyone wants to make it to the show, but I don't think people understand and appreciate what it takes to get to that level.
Yeah. I mean, man, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. But I wouldn't go back to it. I miss playing a lot. I miss the clubhouse environment. I miss, being around the boys all the time. And that's something I miss a ton. I don't miss the lifestyle at all. But what I'll say is that it definitely shaped my mindset now. Like I lived so broke and so kind of survival mode for so long that I just like learned how to make it work, and you're making $1,200 a month and paying $400 for to live in a 3-bedroom apartment and sleep on an air mattress in a living room for an entire season. Yeah, you just figure it out, man. Like it's because you have the goal that is so clearly defined that it's not even like you just know this is just part of it. There's nothing that you're going to do to change it. You could, of course, like in the off season, I'm working a couple jobs to make ends meet and make it work and support my pursuit, but it's just all part of it. There's not even a thought. And I think if you asked most guys in minor league baseball that like, yeah, looking back, it was shitty. Yeah. But like the lifestyle was shitty, but you don't even think about it in the moment because it's just like, oh, this is the territory. Like I know what it is. And it's like fun when you embrace it. It's fun because it's like, yeah, we get to look back and laugh at it like we are right now. And it's, it's a blast.
Yeah. I mean, Todd explained it like falling in love with the journey over the destination that way. And if you want to succeed, you have to find a way to do that. You have to find a way to laugh and smile, even when things are not as good as they could be, right? Even when you're making $1,200 a month instead of $12,000 a month, even when you're sleeping on the air mattress instead of the king-sized bed. It's like, even when things are not looking like you expect them to, you have to find a way to find enjoyment in that, for lack of a better way to put it, because everyone is going to go through those things if you're trying to pursue greatness. I think that you can avoid them, but I don't think you're going to achieve great things without going through experiences like that. I've never met a business owner who's made it without a few hard days. I've never met an athlete who hasn't gone through something hard and traumatic, whether that's an injury or a financial crisis or some crazy shift in the team, whatever it is that way. There's always difficult things thrown in front of the path of those that are called to do great things. And your ability to either smash through those obstacles or to read them and redirect around them in a better path ultimately determine your ability to get there, in addition to your ability to just enjoy the entire time for whatever it brings for you.
Yeah, it's perfectly said, man. I mean, it's no different. It's like the hero's journey, right? It applies to any walk of life. Anybody who's on a track to achieve what they want to achieve, you're going to hit your speed bumps. You're going to hit your, forks in the road. You're going to hit your times where things just don't make sense or they seem impossible to insurmount. But it's just, again, it's how you respond to that stuff. And sometimes it's a pivot more than it is a climb. And sometimes it's, oh, this isn't the path and I got to do something else. And that's still valuable because you're learning kind of what your limits are and what your path really is. Yeah. I mean, I can't even count the amount of, obstacles I've experienced on this journey, and to even call them obstacles at this point is kind of, I don't even think that's the case. It's just experience,
Yeah, exactly. You learn through everything that you end up going through that way. And I find the adverse situations teach a lot more than the pleasant ones, if you will. Bryan, I feel like we could probably talk about this stuff all day long, dude. Is there anything we missed as we were kind of chatting briefly about you and your journey and how you've gotten to this point of success in your life, if you will?
Well, I'll say this, two things. I'll say, first of all, I think congratulations to you and your pursuit of success in, between everything you're doing, your career, your podcast, everything you're doing for the rehab and performance space. I think it's funny and ironic that you're having all these guests on, but you're probably maybe the best example of this across the board. So I think it's good to self-reflect on that too and give yourself a pat on the back for a well-deserved pat on the back. So congrats to you, and keep on going because you're doing a great job. Second thing is this. It's funny. It's like, it almost like makes me like, it feels really weird hearing you say that about me, because my own perspective is a lot different, right? Not that I don't feel like I'm successful or I haven't hit all these milestones in my life, and not that I'm not grateful for anything like that, but I think when everybody can kind of step back and think about it, like, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Like, like that's like equal parts scary and freeing at the same time, right? It's scary to think about, like, damn, like nobody knows what they're doing, but it's also really freeing and like almost empowering when you realize, like, okay, cool. There's not as much pressure as I imagined. Like, there is not this level or barometer or this standard that I need to meet. It's just a steady path, and learning is really the biggest thing versus like achieving a certain level of accomplishment. I don't think that's the right way to view it. And if you understand that nobody knows what the hell's going on or what they're doing, then it gives you permission to kind of mess up and figure it out.
And building off that for a second, not only does no one know what they're doing, but like no one knows what decision or what one thing is going to catapult you into the future versus set you back. Like, everyone likes to think they've cracked the code. Everyone likes to think that they have found the holy grail. But as you mentioned, it's like, even though you've done all these incredible things, you still don't feel like you've made it yet. Like, I certainly am a very far from where I want to be at this point. It's like, okay, top 3%, cool. All these different like conversations, great, but like, what's next? It's like, can we get to 1%? Can we get to 0.01%? Like, how high can we go here? And I think that there's an element of it where it's like, regardless of how good you are at something, regardless of how successful other people view you, you have to find a way to always continue to move forward, right? Like, people talk about Elon Musk and it's like, oh my gosh, he's the richest man alive. And it's like, well, he clearly wasn't satisfied, because now he's worth what, over 500 billion or something ridiculous at the time we're recording this. Like, clearly he's got this level of just like, screw you, I'm going to keep going, that like other people don't have. And it's like, I think if you want to achieve great things, that's what you need. You need to have this ability to have high respect, low ego, combined with the fact that you are willing to look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, look, yes, I've done X, Y, and Z, but that's not enough yet. And I need to find a way to continue to go forward. And I think that that's something that is very difficult to teach. It's like, you either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, I don't have a magic code of how to give it to you, because like you said, no one knows what the hell they're doing. And that certainly includes me. I don't know what the rest of today is bringing. I mean, there's stuff on the calendar, but it never goes as planned. I don't know what tomorrow's bringing. It's just like, you kind of got to buckle up and just hold the heck on for the roller coaster ride.
Yeah, man. I think that's a really good way to say it. I think it's also like finding what your level of, like what your risk assessment is, right? Because you got people like Elon who know, like, you're talking that 0.00001th percentile, right? Like, and I don't think you or I are saying that that's the definition of success. It's the definition of success for him, because that's his standard. And I think really the standard that you set for yourself, or I'll speak for myself, that I need to set for myself, is meeting what I feel is appropriate for me. And there's no right or wrong with that, but it's meeting your own standard is really the gauge of success versus meeting someone else's objective standard or monetary value or hours worked in a week or something like that. But Yeah, because like neither you or I are Elon. Like nobody's Elon, and I think that's totally fine. It's just a matter of meeting your standard for success yourself.
Absolutely. Bryan, for people who want to find out more about you, keep up to date with all the amazing stuff you're doing at Hex and so on that way, where can they find you at?
So on Instagram, it's hex_PTP, and Facebook is Hex Physical Therapy and Performance. Website is hexptp.com.
Awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything Bryan is up to. Bryan, this was awesome, dude. Appreciate your time.
Dan, thanks a lot, man. This is awesome.
Bryan, welcome back to the podcast. I think this is your third time on. I really appreciate you being here. For people who might have missed our last 2 episodes, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all the amazing stuff you're doing in the PT space, sports space, entrepreneur space, all the different areas and avenues that you find yourself in?
So I'm the owner of Peak Performance Physical Therapy in Owego, New York. Also own 2 fitness centers, Tioga Fitness and Summit. Summit is more kind of a cross-training, class-oriented gym. Tioga Fitness is more of an independent, go in, work out on machines or whatever. I've been in Owego now 25 years this month. So it's been a very interesting journey. I currently coach high school basketball. I've coached multiple sports, football, wrestling, and currently have stuck with basketball.
In addition to being a former collegiate wrestler yourself, correct?
Correct.
That's incredible. And on top of that, a family man with 4 kids, married for longer than I've been alive, and just highly successful in every aspect of life that way, by my own opinion, that way, from family matters to business matters to sports and athletic matters. I don't know many people in their 50s that are doing Spartan races and just continuing to press on and challenge themselves to the level that you do day in and day out. But success is a funny thing. It looks a little bit different from one person to the next. I'm curious, how do you define success in your own terminology that way?
My own terminology, I typically say success is usually proportional to the smile on your clients' faces. I think, to also coin a prior author, if you have helped one person breathe easier, your life has been a success.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that definition a lot. It's something that I feel like continues to come up over and over again. Is a lot of times I think people start to view success as something that's individual in nature. When I do this, when I do that, when my team hits X amount of wins per season, whatever it is that way. When in reality, I think as we kind of go through the process of life that way, we start to realize it's not that big of a deal. We're not that big of a deal at the end of the day. It's more about those that we impact, influence, and help to get to that metaphorical high ground of life, if you will. It's more about the rest of the people and maybe a little bit less about ourselves that way. I like to think that I'm usually the least important person in the room.
And that's a good way to start.
Absolutely. And obviously, success comes in many different definitions. I really like yours that way. But success also comes at a cost or a trade-off for a lot of people that way. And I've talked with a lot of athletes who, they give up 6 to 8 hours a week on just travel time alone to get to some of these different practices and so on that way. For you, being successful from family standpoint, from business and entrepreneur standpoint, to clinician and coach standpoint, what have you had to maybe trade off in order to achieve that kind of success that you've had thus far?
The trade-off, especially in the beginning, was time. And the other trade-off is less time for yourself. And ironically, we just said success is not based on yourself. Success is helping others reach their potential. And so, my wife and I adopted the phrase that we were going to be servants, and that's kind of how we approached opening the clinic. And there was time in the beginning that I didn't spend with my kids. But you know what? I don't think they really remember that. They're the here and the now, and I have time to spend with them now. So those sacrifices of time in the beginning, the return of investment has been great on that.
Yeah, it sounds like you gave up a day for tomorrow's betterment, if you will, or you kind of made an investment where it was essentially you put in a couple of years, let's say, of long days, long nights, not a whole lot of sleep, and not a whole lot of time doing the things that you want to do. And in exchange for that investment, now you've got significantly more time to spend with family or doing whatever else you want to do because you made that investment early on. And I'd imagine had you not put that time in early on, we would be in a drastically different place now.
Yeah, and interestingly, I didn't look at it as, hey, I'm going to put in this time now because I'm going to get it back and more later. That's just kind of what happened along the process. The attitude was like, okay, we're going after this, and it's no matter what it takes, it's never give in. And as things evolved and changed, the reality turned out to be bigger than the initial dream.
That seems to be a very rare line of thinking in today's day and age. It seems like everyone I talk to, or a lot of people I talk to, I should say, are looking for shortcuts to success. They're looking for the easy way. They're looking for the fast track way to get there. They're looking to avoid some of the dirty work that it takes, the long days, staying in the clinic and literally being the one to clean up, to do the laundry and all that sort of thing, because you're not at a point where you can hire someone else yet. It's all on you that way. How might you approach a conversation with some of those different individuals? And I'm sure maybe you even coach one or two every now and then that just wants the shortcut to success and doesn't necessarily want to take every step that it takes in order to get to that higher ground.
Well, basically, I tell them very rarely do great things come from your comfort zone. You and I have talked about that before. We use the analogy with exercise. You need to load the tissue to create change. Well, if you want to be at a different spot in your life, you have to get out of your comfort zone. Mentally, spiritually, you just have to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to be where you're at. There is no scratch and win. Those are so rare that they happen. It's, you know what? Let's get this done. And that was one of the hardest things was, first of all, having some faith that it could happen. And number two, saying, I'm not comfortable with this. And that's probably why we should do it.
Right. Absolutely. Diving headfirst into the uncomfortable situations that way. And I think just looking back, it's like life is full of uncomfortable situations. Like that's one of the few certainties of life. Like things are going to hurt sometimes. But I think those moments make you appreciate the times when things are a lot better, when you can, as you mentioned before, have an endless smile on your face because you walked through those hard times or those difficult times, right? Yeah, you might have had to go down to some very low metaphorical valleys, but the peaks that you're able to summit afterwards, you like how I worked in your two business names to that, peak and summit. The peaks that you're able to summit later on are just far more better of a view, and you're able to appreciate a lot more because you know what it's like to be at the highs and the lows, I'll say. I think that's something that came up when we were talking with Todd on this little podcast series as well, is it's like, hey, look, I'm just going to go all in. And if it goes my way, great. If not, then at least I went all in and I can spend the rest of my life knowing that I gave it my all.
I tell all of my seniors who are athletes, I tell them, I hope at some time during your life you struggle and encounter hardship. And they kind of look at me like I've got two heads. And I say, because you will be better off on the other side.
Absolutely. And we see that all the time with individuals who come in to meet us. Their mood and mentality on the first day in the clinic is often much different than the final day. Maybe day one, they're not even walking or not even lifting their arm above their head. And by the time they wrap up with us, they're usually back to doing whatever they want to do, whether that's pickleball or just spending time on the floor with their kids and going up and down stairs, whatever it is that way to them. I think that there's something certainly powerful and transformative about that process of not being able to do the things you want to do, to getting back to doing those things every single day without a whole lot of increased strain or undue effort that it might take otherwise.
Yep. Don't run away from the storm. Take it on.
Absolutely. And Bryan, I even forgot to mention that you're a successful author who's written one book and I believe a sequel on the way. For those listening who are potentially interested in this growing field of content creation, whether that be in the form of books, and when I say books and authorship, I mean you wrote it before ChatGPT was a thing, so you actually wrote the whole thing yourself that way. What was that process like, and what advice do you have for those looking to do something similar on that front?
Again, getting out of your comfort zone. I hated English. But when you establish goals and you're committed to trying to finish those, one of the goals that I had established was that I was going to write a book, and it turned out, again, the reality turned out bigger than the dream. I wrote it for my kids. I wanted them to have something, if I was no longer around, to teach them that they could read in a story form, that their actions and their lack of actions define who they are. And that was the premise of the book.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that kind of underlying message and meaning behind the book as well. Bryan, I realize you and I could probably talk about stuff like this all day long. Is there anything we missed in relation to the concept of success and how you define it and how you view it and how others can maybe learn from your own experiences to become successful themselves in their own right?
I don't think so. I think the other thing that we just kind of slipped in there was about being a servant. And when you put other people first, and in my industry, that's the patient, that's the provider, that's the referring physician, the insurance company. When you put others first, when you put their needs first, you're going to create those relationships that are going to help you build your practice. It's not that I know how to stretch a knee or evaluate a shoulder. It's you connect with the person, they feel that connection, and every time they have a problem, they're going to come and see you. So by putting others first, it's a wonderful saying. It is definitely better to give than to receive.
I completely agree with that, Bryan. And there's something, again, about that process of helping other people get to that metaphorical high ground and helping them achieve what they set out to. Because a lot of the times, whether we want to admit it or not, we as people need help. And we as people are not meant to be alone and isolated. There's that tribe kind of mindset, if you will. Like, who's your tribe? Who's your community? Who are your people at the end of the day? And I think, at least from an entrepreneur standpoint and coach and clinician standpoint, if you can be that for the people that you're working with day in and day out, then you are on the right path and you will succeed in anything that you put your mind to. Bryan, if people want to find out more about you, I know you have a booming online presence. Where can they find you at?
Yeah, my online presence isn't so big there, buddy, but they can find me in Owego, New York, Peak Performance. It's a simple Google search and you can get to our website and, being more happy to respond to anybody that contacts me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link to that in the description below too. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything that Bryan and his team are doing up in Owego. Bryan, pleasure as always, man. Really appreciate your time.